Hey folks, it's Natasha from Redefining Bipolar. This video is a small expose, if you will, about a project that I did a year and a half ago about knowledge translation and bipolar disorder. It is an art project. It's a series of 5 illustrations that I did in a class that I had in my master's degree program. It's actually one of the first classes I had. Some of the background behind this is really all you need to know is I'm a artist, and I really just wanted to put that somewhere in my graduate degree. I just really wanted to do art as a project, and I got to do it, so it was really cool. I guess very moving for a lot of people, so for a long time I kept saying, I'm gonna put this online, I'm gonna put this online, and now I'm finally doing that. It's been a wonderful year and a half of procrastination surrounding this particular project. Before I begin, if you don't know what knowledge translation is, it's basically taking scientific findings and all that scientific jargon that many people don't understand and putting it into just understandable terms, everyday kind of what we would call layman's term. The objective that I had written out when I was doing this was to explore the importance of the narrative throughout the knowledge translation process. So you can replace narrative with the word story if you want. The first illustration I have is called The Individual Behind the Research. This is definitely a piece in time. This illustration particularly, and I even remember saying this when I was giving my presentation in class, is that it doesn't reflect how I currently feel. So when I gave it in class, I think it was a few weeks after I'd actually finished the drawings themselves, and it was from that point in time, I said I would have drawn something else to reflect how I feel about having bipolar disorder. And the same goes now, is that the image here is not what I would draw if I were to be given the prompt, what does bipolar disorder feel like? Which is essentially what I tried to do in this drawing. So what I had at the time is I was feeling pretty depressed and pretty just stuck in life, and the giant beings in the sky are mania and depression. And I decided to put myself into this process as a caricature, so with the little blue hair in the middle, and it's because I was feeling stuck between these two giants and I felt very small. So there's a huge story there that I could get into, but otherwise we'd be here for like an hour and we'd only be on the first drawing. So the point behind this is to demonstrate how rich in detail someone's life is, even in a single moment in time. Just even right now, to think about how many things are happening in your life and that you could talk about or maybe not, and even then that's a story too. So it was just meant to demonstrate, here's an individual, look at how amazing one person is. And not amazing as in like, oh, they're great, they're fantastic, but just kind of awesome in the actual use of that word, as in inspiring awe. That was the backdrop for the next 4 drawings. The next drawing in this series is called Turning Individuals into Research. I didn't realize that at the time, but I was very critical of this process. So what you'll see here is that there are what was before in very great detail is now losing detail, that we've lost aspects of someone's story that now needs to be put together so it can make sense in a larger story, so that we can describe things in a scientific way. Words are failing me right now, unfortunately. But another piece of this was also coming at it from the researcher side, and that research takes a very long time, unfortunately. Getting from point A to point B can be difficult at times, and especially when you're studying something like bipolar disorder, there's just a lot to consider with people, and there's a lot of ways to go about it too. My criticism that I now see very clearly in myself is about how research is done, mostly from a like statistical or quantitative perspective, whereas I take a very like qualitative, like listening to the story, having interviews, sitting down with someone, forming relationships, and then gaining that knowledge perspective instead. So I'm biased in that way, and obviously we need statistics, but to get back to the point, this drawing illustrates how we do lose detail no matter what research method we choose. We lose some details of that person's story as we collect more data. There's a lot more that could be said about the research process, like so much more. I snarkily added at the bottom, "Are we done yet?" Because sometimes it definitely feel like that, like we're just ready to kind of move on, or yeah, it's just it can be tedious sometimes. I enjoy it a lot, but there are a lot of considerations to look into when you're looking at research, so that I will leave for another time. The third illustration is called Guiding the Results Responsibly. Even with my criticisms of the research process and losing some detail of those stories, we also can gain them at this point. We can come back to the knowledge that we gained from the results that we had from whatever studies we were doing, and we can bring back those people and say, hey, this was your story, come back and like let me know if this is right or wrong, and like tell me how we should be doing, how should we be using this knowledge that you helped give us. And this is a very common practice in a lot of qualitative research, but I drew this at the time more from a quantitative mindset. At this point I had to think to myself, how do we guide ourselves in the right direction when we're doing research? And to me, it's all about involving the people who gave you their knowledge in the first place. In this illustration, I'm guiding the hand of knowledge, not to be in an arrogant way, but to show that I also, in this picture, am gaining pieces of my own story back when I do that. So it can be a really beneficial process for just about everyone involved. The fourth drawing I have is called Personalized Knowledge Translation. So you know when you're doing a job or you've got an assignment and you get to that point where you just don't really want to do it anymore and you're kind of tired, so you take a little bit of the easy way out. That was this drawing, like 100%. At the very top, if I don't think you can see it, it says, behold the readings for just one class in a week. Grad school is very intensive reading wise, so that's where I was at that point. There was only one person in my class who got this reference, but the blue and orange separation of knowledge translation that's basically separating my body are actually from the game Portal. So look that up if you're not familiar with it, but that's the reference. And what this is basically demonstrating is knowledge translation. So what I was doing is I was taking information that I knew, so that's like what I'd be holding up in my hand, and then I was drawing it out. So I drew out that information into these drawings. Knowledge translation at its finest, I suppose. The last product is the product, apparently is what I called it. And I don't remember what I said about this. I just remember wanting to leave on a message of hope, and that I had found a lot of great things in doing this process. I called this in class a dual role model, meaning that I'm someone who's been a research participant and I've been on the other side too, so I got to see the inner workings on what it was like from both perspectives. So bringing those two perspectives together created for me a very holistic viewpoint where I could say, hey, I can actually craft these pieces, this knowledge, into a way that's extremely meaningful for me and for other people. So I wish I remembered what I said a year and a half ago about this drawing. I know so many people resonated with it, to me, it just felt like we need to grow more in this field, and specifically from this perspective of engaging people with bipolar disorder and empowering them in their own stories. So I think that's about it. I'm really glad I finally finished this. For those of you who really wanted to see this and listen to it, I'm sorry it took so long. Here it is finally. I wish I could comment on it more, but I didn't want to be sitting in my chair and yapping away to myself for a couple hours. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.